بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to our program, A Successful Dialogue in Islam. We've been discussing the topic of having discussions in Islam, a proper way to dialogue in Islam, as we receive information from our book, the Quran, and from the Sunnah, or the way of the final messenger, Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. May Allah grant him peace and raise his rank. We've been discussing the definition of a proper dialogue and the things that are meant by a dialogue. In the Arabic language, the word dialogue is al-hiwar, and this basically means a It's when a return. It's when someone speaks and the other one hears and then answers. And that's the basic concept we've been talking about. Various dialogues that we find in the Quran and in the Sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the way that what we can learn from those examples of those dialogues that we see. Allah created human beings with different intellectual abilities. We differ in perception, we differ in our knowledge, we differ in our mentality, our complexions, our languages, and the way we behave. Allah the Almighty says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ومن آياته خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف ألسنتكم وألوانكم إن في ذلك لآية للعالمين. And among his signs is the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the differences of your languages and your colors. So the differences in our complexions is a sign from Allah. The differences in our language is also one of his signs. Verily, in that are indeed signs for human beings of sound knowledge. And this is found in the surah known as the Rum, or the Surah Rum, the 30th surah, the 22nd verse. And he Almighty says, وَلَوْ شَاءَ رَبُّكَ لَجَعَلَ النَّاسَ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً وَلَا يَزَالُونَ مُخْتَلِفِينَ إِلَّا مَنْ رَحِمَ رَبُّكَ وَلِذَلِكَ خَلَقَهُمْ. And if your Lord had so willed, he could surely have made mankind one ummah, one nation. But they will not cease to disagree, except him on whom your Lord has bestowed his mercy. And so for that mercy, he created them. So as people differ in their opinions, as they differ in their faiths, as they differ in their attitudes, intellectual abilities, and the perception of things, how they see them, as they differ about religious issues and rulings, they need to apply the skill of dialogue, need to apply the skill of how to be able to listen to someone differ with us while we wait patiently for them to make their point, while we seek to understand them before being understood. And when we answer only within our field of knowledge, our scope of knowledge, and we answer sincerely with what we know and what we know to be true. Allah gave the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, as his messenger, the ability to understand the importance of communicating with people, because it was the main job of all messengers to call people to the oneness of Allah. Every messenger. He did not limit his communication to those who were believers. Rather, he saw all people, regardless of religion, language, race, gender, social status, or position, as human beings, and thus he established good communication with all of them. Allah instructed him to say, قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ إني رسول الله إليكم جميعا الذي له ملك السماوات والأرض لا إله إلا هو يحيي ويميت. The Messenger of Allah was told by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to say to the people, to declare to them, say, O mankind, verily, I am sent to all of you as a messenger of Allah. Allah who owns the dominion of the heavens and the earth. La ilaha illa huwa. None has the right to be worshipped in truth except Him. It is He who gives life, and it's Allah who causes death. And this is in Surah Al-A'raf, the 7th Surah, verse 158. So whether the people were Arabs or non-Arabs, whether they were Muslims, Jews, Christians, or other faiths, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ conveyed Allah's divine message to them. He conveyed the message to Arabs and conveyed the message of Islam to non-Arabs. He conveyed it to Jews and to Christians. He set examples that could be brought to life and practiced through his sunnah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli. When it was time to pray, he was an example of how to pray. He said, take from me manasikakum. Your rites of Hajj, take them from me. So people saw him do the rites of Hajj, and then they learned from him how to do them. But also they learned from him the proper manner of what's known as al-mu'amala, interaction between people, interaction between the creation. Islam is universal in its belief. It has not changed over the years. It's universal in its acts of worship. They have not changed over the years. Universal in individual behavior, a suluk, based upon the Prophet's suluk, his behavior, that has not changed over the years. And the mu'amala, how to interact, how to get along in various ways. The Prophet ﷺ showed us how to do that. As a prophet, Muhammad's mission was to call people to Allah's religion while establishing a good dialogue with them. To accomplish this, he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, took into account the emotional, mental, and age differences of the individuals in order to present the message in the best and most effective way to the people. Some objectives of sincere dialogue, what are they? If I'm going to talk to someone and they're going to talk to me, if we're communicating, what should our objective be in this communication? Because in past episodes, we talked about the Prophet ﷺ not being someone who just spoke to waste time or to kill time or to trash talk, but his speeches and his talks, they had objectives. So the real objective behind having a dialogue, a hiwar, an interaction between yourself and others is what? The real purpose of dialogue is to call to the truth, establish the evidence for that truth, negate uncertainty, eliminate invalid talk and invalid opinions, eliminate differentiating between fact and falsehood. Allah the Exalted says, وَكَذَلِكَ نُفَصِّلُ الْآيَاتِ لِتَسْتَبِينَ سَبِيلُ الْمُجْرِمِينَ. And thus do we explain the ayahs, explain the evidences, explain the verses, explain the lessons, explain the signs, explain the revelations in detail, so that the way of those who represent mujrimun, those that are criminals, polytheists and sinners, may be obvious from those that are not. And this is found in Surah Al-An'am, Surah number 6, verse 55. This is so that everyone can choose one of two paths with full awareness and clarity. Ibn al-Qayyim, may Allah have mercy upon his soul, said, a translation of which is, verily, the benefit of disagreeing and the benefit of discussing is reflecting and moving from falsehood to truth, from ignorance to knowledge, and from blindness to sight. Khatib al-Baghdadi, may Allah have mercy upon him, said, the purpose of a discussion is to clarify the truth and strongly establish it without entering into long argumentation. When a person has sincerity, it does not concern him whether Allah brings the truth from him or the one he differs with. This is a mark of sincerity. Tawdih and haqq. If a person is having a discussion, nothing is to say that if I'm talking to someone, then I'm always going to have the right situation, or I'm always going to have the right evidence. The person I'm speaking to may have it. And so if that person has the right evidence and we recognize it as the right evidence for what the person is saying, there's no anger. I have to say, you're right, and I was incorrect. I was wrong. And we move on as brothers, or as husband and wife, or even as parents and children. He looks at that person as a helper, the one who differed with him and corrected him. He looks at the person as a helper. It's a mercy if a person is incorrect, and then a person corrects them. We shouldn't look at that person as being someone who people are going to hold in higher esteem than me because he was right and I was wrong. No, this person is a helper, not an enemy. Therefore, he thanks him if he shows him his mistake or shows him the correct way to do something. May Allah have mercy on Imam Shafi'i, rahimahullah, who said, I have never discussed an issue with anyone and wished that he would make a mistake. And he also said, I have never spoken to someone except that I wanted him to have success, be accurate, and be helpful in the discussion. He said, I never spoke to someone except that I never cared whether Allah clarified the truth upon his tongue or upon mine. Because if a person is talking and always wants to be right and always wants to prove the other person wrong, that's an imbalance. It may even be called vanity. A person wants to be heard. A person wants to out-talk the other one. This might even be looked upon as a vanity. How what? On one occasion, when the companions were sitting in the masjid, a young man came to the Messenger of Allah ﷺ and asked permission to commit fornication. This is an example of the mercy of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, the way he handled things. It's an example of the wisdom that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed upon him. It's an example of his concern for the people that he was speaking to. This young man said, "I'dhinni fi zina." He said, "O Messenger of Allah, give me permission to commit fornication." The people turned to rebuke him by saying, "Quiet, quiet," because to them this was a horrible thing. قال أدنو فدان منه قريبا فجلس قال أتحبه لأمك؟ قال والله جعلني الله فداءك. قال ولا الناس يحبونه أمهاتهم. So first the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he said to him, after he made that strange request, he said, "Come here. Come closer. Rather than push him away, he brought him nearer. We spoke in the past about being familiar with people, about one of the objects of a dialogue, or the Prophet's dialogue, was to familiarize himself with the people, to acquaint himself with them. So he says to the young man, come closer. And he begins to dialogue with him. He begins to talk to him about his situation. He keeps the situation calm. He places the young man at ease and then speaks to him. The Prophet said, come here. The young man came close and he told him to sit down. The Prophet said, would you like that for your mother? The man said, no. By Allah, may I be sacrificed for you. And then the Messenger of Allah ﷺ made him aware of situations outside of himself, made him aware that people would not like that for their mothers. قال, and then he went on. He said, أتحبه لابنتك? قال لا. والله يا رسول الله جعلني الله فداءك. قال ولا الناس يحبونه لبناتهم. So another member of his family, and people's families that are close to them, that they love, that in our case of the Muslims, that we want to protect. We want to protect our mothers. We want to protect our daughters. And here was this young man, he had the same feeling. So when the Messenger of Allah asked him, would you like that for your daughter? The man said, no, by Allah, may I be sacrificed for you. Then the Messenger of Allah increased his awareness outside of himself, and he said to him, people would not like that for their daughters either. If it be the will of Allah, we'll continue this story about this young man in the very next episode, inshallah. This is all I have to say. وصلى اللهم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.